This is the Sealey 100A no gas MIG welder. Now my wife got me this for Christmas this year, and in this video I'm going to unbox the MIG welder, show you what's inside and show you any assembly that's required. So first of all we'll take a look at the box. You can pause the video if you want to read what it says. So this is how you lift it out of the box, and you'll see that we've got the torch, the earth wire and obviously the power cable attached to the welding set, and then there's a reel of flux cord wire, which is a nice touch. There's a little thank you on there for purchasing the machine, and then if you lift the lid up, inside there is a set of instructions, the handle. Inside the instruction bag there are some fixtures and fittings. Inside the fixtures and fittings bag we've got the cover locking spring, a threaded screw with a washer, spring washer and nut, a self-tapping screw and a spare nozzle for the welding torch. Step one is to fit the handle. Now if you look on top of the welder, you can see there's a notch at the front end of the welder, a little slot with a hole at the back end of the welder, and if you look at the handle you can see there's a square end here that's got a groove on either side, and then on this end, the smaller end, there's a little lug at the end of that. So it's orientated this way on top of the welder. Just slide it along and then keep sliding it along. The front will drop in there and then push it forward and you can hear it click, and you can see now that's encapsulated, and then all we've got to do is screw that down. Hopefully you can see that hole there in the handle. This self-tapping screw is used to fit it. Screw that down and it's tight because it's self-tapping, but once it gets started it eases up a bit. There we go. So that is the handle fitted and it's nice and solid. Now I'm going to fit the cover locking spring, which is this thing here. The component parts are the spring itself, the screw, the washer, the spring washer and the nut. They go here on the front of the unit. If I zoom in, you can see there's an indentation with a hole there. So it screws into there. Place the locking spring over the hole, push the screw through, trap it with your finger, then the plain washer, the spring washer and the nut. So I'll make sure that's vertical, and then I'm just going to tighten it up. I'm holding on to the nut at the back and it's not turning. There, and that's nice and tight now. So I'll show you how that works. It actually locks onto the handle. If you just push the lid down, press that in there, that locks onto the handle and allows you to pick up the welding set. So that completes the assembly of the welder, but what we've got to do now is fit the flux core wire. So I'll go through that now. Step one, open the lid, press this silver button in there at the handle, lift the lid back so you can get to the internals. The wire is fitted onto this spindle here. We've got to remove this wing nut, unscrew what's called the pressure disc from the spindle. The next thing to do is to place the wire onto the spindle, and you've got to make sure that the wire is going to uncoil towards the front of the welder in this orientation. So I'll drop that down over the spindle. Just going to poke that back down in there for now so that it doesn't uncoil. And as you can see, the spring is allowing that to move up and down. So we screw on the pressure disc, and then that needs to actually provide a slight braking effect. So I'm going to pull this out so that it won't run on once the machine stops trying to pull it. Now you can see that that's not running on. I'm going to give it a little bit more than that, I think. I'm going to leave it about there. It's difficult to say. I think time will tell whether that's right or not. And then we put the wing nut on top of the pressure disc, and that will lock everything in place. Like so. So that's a reel fitted onto the spindle. Now I'm pretty sure that there's an easy way of doing it than this, and I've done something wrong, but it doesn't mention anything about this on the instructions. So I'm going to wind this back in again and poke it back down through the hole until I'm ready to thread the wire, because I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to unreel like that, although I'm pretty sure it will do every time I try and fit it if I don't do it properly. So the next part of the assembly is to slacken this and then just lift it up vertically like so. And this is called the wire lock screw. So I've changed the orientation of the camera so you can see what's going on now, and I've just been reading the instructions, and schoolboy rookie error I made. I should have read the instructions right the way through to start off with, because it says not to take this off on the speel until you're ready to thread it through. Otherwise it will do exactly what it did and uncoil. So don't actually remove the wire from this little hole in this reel until you're ready for the part where it goes through here. So the next part to do now is to pull this mouldy back, and you'll see there's a bearing on there which allows the wire to roll through but tensions the wire at the same time. So I've changed the position of the camera now to try and explain what's going on, and I apologise for this because I know it's quite confusing. So from this side, what we've done is we've slackened this off, lifted it up, pulled this back, and you can see there's a roller bearing on there, and then there is another drum with a 9mm groove and a 6mm groove that's machined into the drum, and we're actually using 9mm wire. So the next step is to thread the wire through the plastic tube, making sure that the 9mm groove is on the top there, and then into here. And if I zoom in there, you might be able to see it. There's a little hole there where the wire goes into the torch assembly. Remove the wire from the hole in the reel so that you can actually move it out. And it says to have 40 or 50mm of reasonably straight cable, like so. And then push it through this plastic tube. Keep on going through the plastic tube, and then it comes through the end there, and you keep on going until you slot it into that little tube that I showed you that goes down to the torch. I'm going to push that in a bit further. Now I can actually let go of that now, and it's not going anywhere. So you can see the wire coming out there, it's actually in the groove, the 9mm groove, going into the little tube that goes down to the torch. So now we push that back, the spring-loaded clamp comes down, and then we start tensioning that. Now the next thing to do is remove this gas cup, and it actually pulls off, but it needs to be twisted and pulled off at the same time. So as I'm holding it now, I'm going to be twisting it towards me from the top and pulling at the same time. So holding it now, twisting it and pulling, and you'll see it just pulls off. It's not threaded on, it just slots on. But there's a spring there, and you can damage it if you twist the cap and pull the wrong way. So that's the gas cup off. So next we've got to remove this tip, which is the copper contact tip. So I'll just slacken that off and remove that. There we go. The next step is to make sure that the earth clamp is nowhere near the torch. Make sure that the welder is switched off, and as you can see it's actually switched on here, so I'll turn that off. Set the voltage switch to minimum, connect it to the mains, switch it on, set the wire speed to position 5, turn on the welder like so. It says to have this cable as straight as you can, but I won't be able to film it if I do that, so I've actually got a bend in it, but I think it will still thread through. And then on the torch itself there's the red trigger there. I'm going to press that. So when I press the red button, you can see it's feeding the flux core cable through the flex towards the gun, and I'm waiting for it to come out the end of the gun there. So there we go, we've got the flux core cable coming through all the way along the flex and out of the torch at the end. So now that I've actually got the flux cord wire through to the torch, I'm going to turn the machine off, slide the contact tip over the flux core wire and screw that in the end there again, and then refit the gas cup, and that just slides on. So I've turned the welder back on again because we need to check the tension. So if I press the red trigger, the flux core wire runs out. So what we've got to do now is grip that wire between your fingers wearing gloves and press the trigger, and you've got to see whether it slips. Now that is actually pushing my finger away, so the tension is too high. To reduce the tension, slacken off this here, so I'll give that about 2 turns, maybe a little bit more, and again. There we go. So I think that's the tension about right. So that's basically it set up now to start welding. Okay, it's a moment of truth. Let's just make sure it works. I'll turn it on. I'll leave it set on minimum. Yep, it's definitely welding. That completes unboxing, assembly and setup of the welder. I hope you found it useful, and thank you very much for watching.